So, I'm going to start this topic, and I'm going to finish this topic at some points, but I think it's important. Is communion essential for salvation? If it is essential for salvation, then you must be a Christian to take it. I don't believe it's an essential for salvation, so I'm wondering why in the world we make it such a big deal sometimes. I am tossing and turning about this whole communion thing right now, and trying to decide whether or not it's, is it just taking a bread and cup, or is there something going on with it? I have always said that this is a non-essential, and I'm not going to fight over it. And if people want to leave, a church over it, I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's wrong without actually having a decent discussion. But I want to finish this more. I want to write my thoughts down on this discussion for communion and really get a good grasp on it, because I heard a completely different view tonight that makes a lot of sense to me right now. And my brain is just absolutely shot with this whole idea of communion and why we need to make it a big deal, especially when you start talking about, age of accountability. So what happens if a child takes it and they're not at the age of accountability? What happens? Some would say nothing. Some would say, well, the church is in trouble. Well, I don't know. Paul was, in 1 Corinthians, was pretty specific that he was talking to the Christian church, the Corinthian church. There was dissension amongst them because there were some people that were feasting while others were starving. That's one of the main basis for that book. And now I'm struggling with this idea of what it really means to take communion. Do you need to take it at all? Is it necessary? We treat it as a remembrance, as we remember what Christ did on the cross. We don't believe in transubstantiation, where it actually changes into the body and the blood of Christ after it's consumed. Is His Spirit present? What do other denominations believe? What do fundamentalists believe? What do the Reformed believe? Presbyterians, what do they believe? What's their meaning behind it? Does the congregation even fully understand why they do what they do? Do I even understand why we do what we do? I have to go back and rethink this. And I'm questioning whether or not we need to put a deadline on this. I hate dissension within the church because of things like this, but unfortunately sometimes these things just need to be addressed. I love God, I really do, and I just wish there was things that were just more clear and things that could be left for mystery. And I can appreciate the traditional aspect of things. And I'll be honest with you, there are days where I wish I could just go back to being a pew sitter and not have to worry about some of these things, but God has called me into a position, and I'm going to continue to fulfill that position, sometimes causing hate and discontent with my wife, but that's just kind of the way it goes. I had to apologize to her earlier, but I just don't understand the dissension amongst the people over something that is has nothing to do with salvation. The only thing for salvation is Jesus Christ. That He lived, He was born of a virgin, lived, died on a cross, rose again 3 days later, and ascended to heaven 40 days after. That's it. That is the essential for salvation. Everything else is doctrine related. And a lot of this thinking makes me really want to go back and just say, okay, I'm just going to go and convert to Roman Catholicism, because they at least have most of their stuff together, whether it's theologically correct or not. I want to learn more. It makes it really difficult when I have some of these conversations where I'm thinking one way, and then I have a fellow brother, a brother that I love, come and say, hey, what about this? And it just completely floors me. It completely baffles my mind that we have to have these kinds of discussions. Martin Luther would be rolling in his grave right now who knows what Calvin would be thinking. There's just times I wish I didn't have to think about some of this stuff. But, you know, God has called me to this position, and I'm going to continue to fulfill this role as long as He's got me called to it. I think that there is going to be some great discussion coming up about communion. I'm excited for it, but it's late and I'm exhausted. So I'm going to put this under my one of my playlists, my religious playlist, or whatever you want to call it, and hopefully can get some conversation out of it. So anyway, I'm going to sign off for the night, and I will see everybody later.